Hey, how's it going, guys? Hey, I wanted to show you guys real quick how to do a leak down test. This is something that I've come across, and when I talk about it, I say there's two tests that we do to verify mechanical integrity. One, compression test. Two, leak down test. And when I say leak down test, I get a lot of blank stares in the classroom. I get a lot of blank stares in the shop, or if I'm traveling around. I don't think it's something that's widely known how to do it properly. So we've got a bike right here that needed a leak down test. John did a compression test on it earlier. The compression looks okay, but just to verify the mechanical integrity, we're just going to do this is an easy bike to check it on real quick. And we've already taken a minute to set it all up and set the crank into position. That's probably the hardest part about a leak down test, is just getting the crank into position. For those of you that do not know or do not understand how this works, what we do is we locate the crankshaft into top dead center on the compression stroke. It has to be on the compression stroke. If it's not on the compression stroke, then what you end up with is leaks all over the place, because the valves will be held slightly open if it's on the exhaust side. Or, especially on a high performance engine like this, you're going to end up with some valve overlap. And when it's on top dead center exhaust, you have a little bit of valve overlap, and you're going to leak out both the exhaust and the intake, and you're going to think that you have a major problem, and you really don't. So getting the engine to top dead center compression stroke is key, and then holding it there. It has to stay there. It has to stay on the timing mark. If you don't, then the test is useless. It does not tell you anything. Okay, so we've got this wedged up here. What I've done is set the crank up and then put a ratchet against the foot peg here, and then even held it up a little bit just to get the timing mark in the exact position, just by shimming it up with this socket retainer. Now, once you've got the crank held in position, a breaker bar is really the way to do it, and we don't have one handy. But you really need a breaker bar, and you really need almost two people to do this, especially on a single cylinder, because they're so easy to slip. Once it's at top dead center, the crank can slide either way. If my hand is the rod, it'll go either way really easily, and holding it there almost takes a second person. One thing you want to be aware of, if you do have a breaker bar, and let's just say you are testing this by yourself and you're wedging it or setting into position, be very careful. Do not, when we set this up, we're going to add the air pressure a little at a time, okay? We're going to set it we start at 0, and we're just going to gradually add the air pressure and make sure that our crank holds its position. You don't want to have the regulator turned all the way in and then just stab 100 pounds of pressure into the cylinder all at once. That can cause the breaker bar to flip one way or the other, or the ratchet to flip one way or the other, and it can hurt you. It could smack you in the face or pinch your hand, or just be aware of that this can be a little bit precarious. Okay, so let's go ahead and hook this up. And we have a Snap-on leak down tester. You can use any brand, it doesn't really matter. As long as you have something to compare what's going in compared to what's being held in the cylinder, okay? It doesn't really matter if you have the red, the yellow, and the green. Doesn't matter if you have, it reads PSI. All you want to know is a percentage. You want to know what's going in and what is being held. So it's just the difference between the two. So we're going to put the air on. Now air is being supplied to the regulator, but nothing is going into the cylinder yet. We're going to just gradually add air as we go, and then watch and listen, make sure our crank doesn't move. You'll know right away if the crank moves. Right now, this cylinder is holding, okay? It's working just fine. We're going to take it all the way up to 100%, or excuse me, 100 psi, and then this gauge is going to measure its percentage off of 100 pounds. So at 10% it would be 90, at 20% it would be 80 pounds, etc. Okay? A lot of gauges don't have the colors, they just have PSI on both sides. Now you can see this is rising almost perfectly with it, which means we're not getting, we're at 100 and we're at not quite 0% leak down. We're maybe at 3 to 5%, which means this engine is mechanically sound. It's good. What you're going to do what you're going to do, once you have the air hooked up and you can see that it's holding, you're going to come right over here to the exhaust. You come to the exhaust, you're going to put your ear up here. You're going to listen. You're going to kind of feel. Your ear is really sensitive. If there's any air coming out of there, you'll feel it on your ear. You'll also hear it coming through the exhaust pipe. There's nothing coming through here. The next thing you're going to do is come and listen up around the intake. And I can't hear anything coming out the intake. I'm not taking this all off by there, but normally you would take that off and you would listen inside the intake. Now, the other place that the air could possibly be escaping is here through the crankcase. Now I can hear just a little bit of leakage down through there, and you can even feel just a little bit of air coming out the crankcase. Now that's normal. You're going to have some leak down. It's impossible to have it be completely sealed up. You're going to have some leak down. I apologize. You're going to have some leak down, like you can see here. You got maybe 5%. That means you got a great engine. In fact, Snap-on's saying clear up to 40%. I disagree with that. If I was even at 20%, this is an automotive tester. I would say anything above 20%, it's time for a teardown. It's time to rebuild the engine. You wouldn't want more than 20% leakage on a power sports engine at all. 5 to 10 is normal. Above 10, 15, you're starting to get 20%, tear it down. I wouldn't even play around with that. You're probably gonna have a leak. So let's just say we did have some leakage on this. The point of this test is to pinpoint where you're losing compression. So if you did a compression test on this and it came back low, okay, or any engine, it comes back underneath spec, and you want to find out, well, where's it losing compression? This is what this test proves. This is what helps you pinpoint. So if you hear it out the exhaust, then the exhaust valves are tight. You're losing your compression there. If you hear it out the intake, your intake's tight, okay? Or not sealed up or damaged or whatever it may be. If you hear it out the crankcase, then the rings are not sealing tight against the cylinder. Maybe you have too much piston to cylinder clearance, okay? Or you might have it on all three. You might have a clapped out engine and you might get all three. And so this just lets you know before you tear it down what you're looking for, because to properly diagnose the engine, you need to know what exactly is going on. Then you can start looking for the causes of that. Oh, the intake, it's leaking out the intake, and we can see we've got a whole bunch of dirt down the air box. Then we know for sure that we've probably had dirt ingestion and the valves are probably damaged, possibly the head is damaged. Then we can give a good estimate to the customer. We can give them a good heads up. Hey, you can plan on probably you're going to need new intake valves. You may need to have the seats reground in your head. You may need guide. We don't know. For sure you're going to need valves, right? A new piston. Whereas if you don't know and you just open the components up, once the engine's open, it's hard to tell what was leaking. You don't know. And so then if you don't know what it was, then you don't know what you're looking for, and then you can't completely rectify the problem. So anyways, guys, that's what a leak down test is. That's how it's set up, and that's what it's for. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching our leak down test video today, and I hope you learned something new. We'll see you next time. Think young.